Evil Morty was one of the biggest mysteries in the entire Rick and Morty series. At least he was, until his story was pretty much wrapped up rather nicely, with later appearances making him more of a reluctant ally as opposed to the secret big bad of the story. But even so, he is still one of the best characters in the series, and I will die on that hill. And in today's video, I just wanted to go over what his plan was, as well as pretty much his entire backstory of how he wanted to go through with it. And this is Evil Morty Explained. Hey though, real quick guys, like I've been trying to do in these videos, I'm trying to hit 1,200 subscribers. Hopefully by now we're at over 1,100, but if we're not, could you guys please do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe button? It would be greatly appreciated. So to understand Evil Morty and his plan, we actually need to go all the way back to his beginning. So Evil Morty is from Dimension 79 Turnstile Superset V, because they just ran out of numbers apparently. Where, like all Mortys, he lived with his family and went on adventures with his grandfather Rick, except he grew tired of the way his Rick treated him, as well as the fact that the adventures were extremely dangerous and usually left him specifically in bad shape. So one night he gets his Rick drunk, and that's not really a hard task. He subdued him and then he killed him. After he killed him, he turned him into a robot that he controlled through his robotic eye and his eye patch. After this, he sets off to try and complete the first part of his plan, to wipe him and his Rick from the Citadel of Rick's database. And in order to accomplish this, they would go to other universes and kill their Ricks. With 27 confirmed kills, well 28 I guess counting his Rick, then downloading all of their knowledge into Evil Morty, as well as stealing their Mortys and taking them to their hideout. And we actually learn all of this in Season 7, Episode 5, on Morty Rickin'. So now at his lair, he would then proceed to essentially string up many of the kidnapped Mortys to the outside and cause them pain. This would enable him to hide from the Citadel, but he needed a scapegoat, and he chose Rick C-137, purely from his proximity to his original Rick in the database, pinning the murders on him by hacking his portal gun history to show that he was in the universe. This inevitably causes Rick to go find him, killing Robot Rick when Morty C-137 starts a coup. This clears Rick C-137's name, and then the Citadel takes all of the kidnapped Mortys, including Evil Morty, back to the Citadel, with him removing his eye patch and blending in. The Citadel would then find out that Rick was a robot, but there wasn't really anything they could do about it. And all of this takes place in Season 1, Episode 10, Close Rick Counters of the Rick Kind. So now, ending up on the Citadel was actually not the best situation for Evil Morty. He did not get caught, but his overall plan was left in shambles. That is, until Rick C-137 would kill the Council of Ricks, nearly destroying the Citadel in the fight between the Galactic Federation. And now, we don't know exactly how Evil Morty survived all of this, but let's just be real, he probably was never really in a whole lot of danger. But this ended up opening up a power vacuum, and the decision was made for there to be a campaign to be the president of the Citadel. So, Evil Morty would create the Morty Party, capitalizing on the fact that there was an influx of Mortys after the Citadel attack, as well as his own previous plan. And although most of the Ricks in the Citadel did not take him seriously, as well as the Mortys thinking he had a very slim chance of winning, he still campaigns, with the turning point for him being when he speaks from the heart, probably for the first time ever, about the class divide on the Citadel between the Ricks and the Mortys, and he actually manages to sway enough of them to actually win the election. So after becoming president, he would then proceed to kill all of the Citadel crime bosses that did not support him, as well as his old campaign manager and a detective Rick who had discovered that he was the one who had kidnapped all of the Mortys. But now that he was in power, he could actually move on to a new and improved plan to not only escape the Citadel, but the entire central finite curve. And we actually see all of these events play out in Season 3, Episode 7, the Ricklantis Mix-Up, or Tales from the Citadel, depending on how you want to look at it. So he would start to put the preparations for his plan into effect, not activating them immediately until the time was right. First, he hacks all of the portal guns, making the portals deadly. Then, he would hack the Operation Phoenix protocols. And this is the one that will back up Rick and Morty's consciousness into clones in the case of death, essentially to download their consciousness to clones in the Citadel's dimensional drive. So instead of going to a different clone, they specifically go to those clones. The last thing he needed was the information on how to take down the Citadel from Rick's C-137, since Rick helped to build the Citadel as well as create the central finite curve. So he invites Rick to the Citadel for dinner, and while he is eating, he scans his brain for the information he needs, combining that with the scans his robot Rick took in their first encounter, just to make sure he also scans Rick's memories, even though this ends up being stolen by Morty and Rick's C-137. With this, he activates the dimensional drive protocol. The portals become deadly, and when all the Rick and Mortys try and escape through Operation Phoenix, they are sent to the dimensional drive, where they are killed and their blood and mashed up bodies are used to create the escape from the central finite curve. Before he goes, he explains to Morty that he is only evil because he is tired of Rick's tyranny and he wants to escape it. That the Ricks intentionally get Jerry's and Bess together in order to create a never-ending supply of Mortys, and actually offers for Morty C-137 a chance to go with him. He knows he won't, and that Morty will inevitably turn him down, not even having a seat for him. He actually says that second seat is just a toilet. He would then take his ship through the portal outside of the curb, and using a portal gun with golden fluid, he ends up escaping the central finite curve. And we find out that the final stage of his plan was actually to make it where you could not travel with Rick's model of the portal gun, making it literally impossible for anyone to follow him if they even wanted to. And here's where we need to break down what this plan was actually all about, because pretty much all this Morty wants to do is to legitimately be left alone, not to have to deal with Ricks, and just live out his life in peace, or at least relative peace. That's why he was originally trying to erase his data from the Citadel, and had that actually worked, none of the rest of this would ever have actually come into fruition. But that plan ends up falling through, so he decides that in order to truly be free and left alone, he had to completely escape the central finite curve, which is essentially the wall around infinity, where Rick was always the smartest man in the universe, but I'm going to do my own video on that eventually, obviously. And all of this we actually see play out in Season 5, Episode 10, Rick Mirai Jack. And realistically, this would have been it for his story. He accomplished his goal, and as long as he was left alone, he would not be considered a threat, making himself his own personal oasis and a mansion protected by a force field in a pretty rough part of space where he only needed to occasionally leave it in order to find supplies like materials to power the oasis. And here he pretty much stayed until Rick C-137 started messing around with dimensions in an attempt to find the Prime Rick that had killed his wife Diane and sent him down the path that he was on. A side effect of this was it interfered with his force field, letting monsters into his oasis, so he left to confront Rick about this, deciding to give Rick a hint to speed up the process, but inevitably getting caught up in the adventure to find and kill Prime Rick. Ironically, Rick and Evil Morty actually make a pretty good team, pretty much handling everything that Prime Rick can throw at them, and discovering that the reason Diane is not in any universe is because Prime Rick used a Omega device, which is a device that's capable of erasing someone across infinity. And as much as I would like to go into that here, that's also its own video, so hit that subscribe button. But this would essentially have to be dealt with, since if Prime Rick could use it on Morty's, he would also die. But also, on the other hand, having this device up his sleeve would be the best deterrent he could possibly have against anyone messing with him. So Evil Morty makes a plan to get the blueprints for the device. This plan actually being deceptively simple. He switches clothes with Morty C-137, who is Rick Prime's real grandson. Then, when they confront him, he fakes a reunion with his real grandfather that Rick Prime falls for. When he lets his guard down, Evil Morty incapacitates him, downloads the plans for the Omega device from him, then proceeds to shut down and destroy Prime Rick's device. He also revives Rick C-137, giving him the opportunity to get his revenge, but stating that he will still be dissatisfied when it is done. And just so you know, Rick does kill Rick Prime anyway, but before he leaves, he warns Rick and Morty to leave him alone, stating now that he has the device, he could kill all of the Ricks at any time. Then, when Morty points out that he could just do it anyway, he says no, that he still just wants to be left alone, and using this as a deterrent is better, since if he used it, it could cause more problems for him in the future, like an army of disgruntled Summers. But he does admit that Rick C-137 is different from the other Ricks, and he could use that one day. For what, we really don't know, but probably if someone ever tries to come after him again, he would essentially use C-137 to get rid of them, or something along those lines. But as far as we know, he returned to his oasis and is living there happily ever after, free and living the way he wants to, just being left alone. All of this taking place in Season 7, Episode 5, Unmortricken. But that is the entire story of Evil Morty, his motivations, his plans, how he ended up the way he did, and the crazy body count that he left in his quest to just be left alone. But let me know what you guys think of his story and what you take from it, as well as what you think we're going to see of him in the future. And while you're down there, guys, please remember to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, turn on that notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.